Great, well done on getting that done. My own. Okay. Just putting my own. Okay. Should come up in just a second here. All right. Can you see this the slide now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to first briefly go over the 2021-2022 Winter Hike Series, which is the 49th year that they're doing this in the Columbus and Franklin County Metro Parks. I have participated the last couple of years. I discovered that in a winter that I wasn't able to go to Florida, which I usually do in the winter. And it was absolutely eye-opening, the number of people in Columbus area that are very active in the winter. That was a new concept to me. It didn't matter the weather, rainy, sleety, snowy. And they used to have it on just one day per park where everybody would come that day. And there were 2,000 to 3,000 people in some of these parks over a very short time period. After the hike, they would have hot chocolate, and each park had something different, shredded chicken or chili or different kinds of soups, vegetable soup, whatever. Sometimes they had hot dogs, but usually had a fire, just a nice little warmth at the end. They did that. So because of COVID, they started doing it on your own. Last year, they issued a passport booklet. So instead of having the 2,000 people at once and lots of problems directing traffic and parking, I actually like this better. And you would go get your passport stamped at each one of the parks. At the end, you get a patch after you do so many of the hikes. It's usually you have to do up to 2 a week, but now instead of the designated days, you can complete them in any order at any time. Let me just, I don't know why this is not clicking again here. There it goes. So it is similar to the hike series, but again, hikes are on your own. You hike any trail in the park. Because before they used to have designated trails. And I have a link that Don will put up. It'll be in the slideshow to put on the website to download your card and print for yourself. Or the first time you go to a park to do one of the hikes, go to any ranger, naturalist, or the nature center when you visit that park, and they will give you one to start with. And then
Christie,
you get a hike. Yes.
Excuse me, Elizabeth has joined, and my parents have joined. Hi,
Oh,
everybody.
wonderful. That's great. So again, this is about the winter hike series for this year. They're on your own. You hike any trail in the park. You can download the card from the website or get it from the nature centers, a ranger or naturalist that you stop. When you complete the hike, you get stamp your card that you have. This is what the card looks like this year. So it has the spot where each of the stamps go. And I'll talk about each one of the months quickly in the order here. So the December one is called the Twinkling Lights Walks. And last year they started having some decorations in the parks. And these are pictures of my husband and myself. The left one with the reddish one, it was at High Banks, and the right one was at Homestead Park. And they say walk under the twinkling lights in December. The parks that are featured there are Battelle Darby Creek, Blacklick Woods, High Banks, Homestead, and Inniswood. So throughout the month of December at all of those parks, between 5 and 7, you get hot chocolate after your hike. And again, you can hike any path. Homestead does not have much of a hike, but you can just hike around the little lake and hike through the lights. They're asking if you would consider doing a donation for Mid-Ohio Food Bank by dropping off canned food. And they always have, in the central areas, they always have big bins. And thank you for dropping off food for Mid-Ohio Food Bank. They're having evening lantern walks on December 17th and December 18th at Chestnut Ridge. Lantern walks with hot chocolate also. And I'll be working at Homestead, at least one of these, and probably High Banks too. For January, they say the theme is New Year, New Traditions. Gather your friends and family for a hike. These are the dates: Blendon, Sharon Woods, Autoside Audubon, Clear Creek, Prairie Oaks, and Three Creeks. You do not have to do it at that time. These are just the times listed that they're going to have refreshments available at the parks. And this again is on their website too. February is the Warm Your Heart Walk. And again, I was kind of surprised when properly dressed. I have a ski jacket on here and hats and my Metro Parks mask. And I found that even down to low 20s, I was warm and toasty because you're walking outside. It's a lot of fun. So February from 10 to noon on Saturdays, they're going to have a campfire at each of these parks. They're also going to have wooden ornaments throughout the parks. And I found one last year actually at Glacier Ridge on the Honda Wetlands. Little wooden ornaments stamped with the Metro Parks logo. And you're welcome to take those home when you find those. And it's their little gift to winter visitors, as they say. So that's at Glacier Ridge, Pickerington Ponds, Rocky Fork, Scioto Grove, Slate Run, and Walnut Woods. February 27th, the whole thing culminates with a winter hike celebration from 11 to 3 at the golf course at Rocky Woods, the Metro Parks golf course. So they say hike along the paths of the Audubon Sanctuary around the golf course. And as you complete that, you can collect your winter hike patch. If you're a member of Friends of Metro Parks, if this is your first time doing this, you get a hiking stick or a medallion for your stick, which we got in the past. And they're going to have hot chocolate there, warming up by the fire. And they're going to have ice skating, and it's not a charge to rent from what I understand. You can just borrow skates there and glide around the rink.
Christie Sue just joined.
Okay, great.
Hello, Sue.
Hello there. Everybody's muted, I'm sure. These are just a few pictures that I just threw in of what I saw on some of the hikes last winter. Of course, I'm bird oriented. I did take other tracks and scat and things in the snow, but top left, be looking for that now. Dark-eyed juncos are starting to show up in backyards. They're calling our snowbirds, harbinger of winter, kind of gray on top, white underneath. The top right picture is called the Gray Ghost. That is a Northern Harrier male. That was at Battelle Darby that I saw my walk there. Underneath on the left-hand side is an owl. It is a short-eared owl, and that is from Battelle Darby in that Teal Trail Plains area. The bottom left are the turkeys at Blendon Woods by the pond in the back there, and they're at the feeders or they're all over. At the right, I cannot remember what park that is at the lake, but I saw this monstrous trumpeter swans, some canvasbacks, there was golden eyes there, scalps were there, greater and lesser. But anyway, so you never know what you're going to see. Look at the waterways this time of year, great waterfowl. And that is it for that one. Again, on the Metro Parks website, you can find all that information, or if you just, and on their Facebook pages also, or you can just Google Metro Parks winter hikes and find it there. Okay, Don, do you want me to just go ahead and go into my next one then?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. And hold on just 1 second because I was not completely, just gonna have to view that. Reading view. Okay, here we go. Just takes a second to set up between the two.
While you're doing that, again, I will mention to those that joined late, we are now recording the sessions and posting them to our own channel within YouTube. So if you miss something, you can always jump to YouTube and see it. They're easy to search. And again, if you do not want to be on YouTube, do not have your face showing on our display.
This is okay. I'm having a little problem with my slides here. Sorry about that, guys. Let me go back to set this back again.
Two more drinks.
Apologize for that. That was kind of crazy.
Yes.
It's always something, isn't it? Okay. Okay.
I will mention before Christie starts, we would appreciate it if everybody has their speakers muted as we go through this.
Now I have.
Just
I think
unmute if
you're-
you have a question.
Okay, and you can mute people too if you need to. So we're going to cover a little bit of Ohio geology basics and a little bit more about Central Ohio geology also. And it's covering a lot of time periods in a very short time. My slideshow is just going crazy here. Okay, here it goes. So everything about our state has a link to the geological history. And as naturalists, I think one of the biggest that I got out of the classes was understanding these interrelationships, understanding how everything, our agriculture, what we can grow in Ohio, our soils, this is all affected by the geological history. Can't really understand the flora and the fauna of our state without understanding the geology. So 550 million to 250 million years ago, very skittish here. We have the Paleozoic period. The Paleozoic rocks are older than the dinosaurs. We really have no dinosaur bones in Ohio and eroded away for various reasons we'll discuss later here. And those rocks are mostly, it's the limestone, the sandstone, shale, and siltstone we have in Ohio. So the oldest rocks are on the bottom, the youngest on the top. Eastern Ohio has mostly sandstone, clay, shale, and the coal is located there. Western Ohio has limestones, dolomites, shales, glacial deposits of clay, silt, and the erratics there, large boulders carried by the glaciers. So the Cambrian period, the Precambrian and Cambrians, the Cambrians come from the Roman name for Wales. Cumbria is what it's called. And a lot of these names you're going to find out are place names in Wales because that's where the first type of this ancient life was found, and they started giving names to this. So Precambrian is when the earth first became solidified about 570 million years ago. They call these the basement rocks, the basement under Ohio, and they've dated to be about 1 billion years old under there. This is when first life appeared, algae and lower invertebrates. Cambrian period, 570 million years ago, lasted 65 million years. And at that time, Ohio was more like our Gulf Coast here, broad coastal plains, and an ancient sea spread and covered the Precambrian rocks during this time period. It deposited sand, mud, and other sediments, which you can see, and I have some list of places you can see these layers, and I'm sure you've noticed driving along the highway at cuts that you see all these layers, and it's very well delineated some places. These sand, mud, and sediments harden over a long period of time into sedimentary rocks, sandstone, shale, limestone, and dolostone. During the Cambrian period, different kinds of animals and plants started to expand greatly, and trilobites in Ohio were the dominant animals, and algae were the dominant plants. In the Ordovician period, it began about 500 million years ago, lasted for more than 60 million years. And the name comes from the ancient Celtic tribe that lived in Wales called the Ordovices or Ordovices. I had lots of Latin actually. And during the early part of this period, the sea started to withdraw and land was being eroded, land erosion followed. By the middle time of this period, the sea returned and it submerged the land surface. And these sediments hardened into the limestone, which we know by our minds and from the talk we had last week about the new quarry trails park, thick layers of limestone there. This is, huge areas in Central Ohio. The late part of this period began about 445 million years ago. The oldest rocks we have in the state are in the Cincinnati area. Those are the ones exposed at the surface, great for fossil hunting there. And this era in Ohio ended with the recent ocean. And southwestern Ohio, like I said, has a great place to find many wonderful, wonderful fossils. Lots of trilobites there, crinoids, brachiopods, and many others. Fish appeared during this period, which were vertebrates, the first animals with backbones. Cedar Creek State Park, you have to get a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. You stop at an office before you get down to the dam and before you get to the wash area where you search for fossils. But it's a great place, especially after heavy rain in the spring. They are lying on the surface. You don't have to look hard. You just walk out and you are free to collect once you get this free daytime permit to search. There's also a place in Sylvania, Ohio called Fossil Park. 370 million years ago, it was covered by sea. Great source of trilobites and brachiopods there also. The Silurian period, that era began about 440 million years ago, lasted for about a million years. Again, another ancient Celtic tribe in Wales called the Silures. Sea was again flooding Ohio, leaving sediments that formed limestone and dolomite. And during the last part of the period, Ohio was a shallow marine environment there. So periodically during this time, the sea level was lowering, seawater evaporated. It would just ebb and flow through the sea that covered us. And that's one of the reasons why Ohio has thick salt beds in the Cleveland area. And Morton Salt has a mine there right by my eldest daughter and son-in-law's house near the Menor area. They have salt mines that you used to be able to tour. I've been trying to find a way to tour, but I don't know if they have those open houses anymore because of COVID. So during this land period and marine period, land scorpions were the first animals to appear on land. And we find the first examples of land plants. This is also called by geologists the golden age of fishes here. Devonian, named for Devonshire in England. It's a county in southwestern England. I've got a sister-in-law lives pretty near there. And this period began about 410 million years ago, lasted for almost 50 million years. So the sediments from these waters we were talking about that kept ebbing and they recede back and appear again. The sediments form numerous sedimentary rocks: limestone, dolostone, shale, and sandstone. The first land animals with backbones, amphibians, appeared during this period, and they became very diverse during this period. And then the first plants with seeds also started to appear here. So next we have, it's also called the Carboniferous period, the Mississippian and Pennsylvanian periods. And these were when the coal beds that we mentioned in eastern Ohio were starting to be laid down. This began about 320 million years ago. And together, these two periods, names are obvious how they got their names, they lasted more than 70 million years. So this was this marine basin, the seas we kept talking about. That basin was partially filled during the early part of the Mississippian period. Erosion later moved some of those first deposits. So some of the early fossils that we would be able to find here, we cannot because of this erosion. And then the Pennsylvanian deposits were laid down by both marine and non-marine waters. Rocks of these period, again, we've got the sandstone, the shale, coal here, ironstone, flint, which is very important to our state and the peoples that were here, and conglomerates. Amphibians increased numbers during this time period, and the first winged insects appeared. I did a show on Odonatas, which are the dragonfly flies, being very, very, very old insects, and they first began appearing during this era, but they were a lot larger than what we have right now. Also, the first early reptiles appeared. For the first time, land plants began to cover the landscape as the waters were receding. There were tree ferns, horsetails, reeds, and different rushes arose around the newly created Pennsylvanian swamps. The Permian period began about 285 million years ago, lasted a little more than 40 million years. And this is not from Wales, this is from a province of Perm in Russia. So during this time, more land environments developed, aquatic environments continued to develop. And this is like the peat bogs, the coal swamps, the deltas, lakes, rivers began to form here and take the shape that closer to what we see right now. Rocks from this period include shale, limestone, and coal. Insects and reptiles were increasing, amphibians decreased during the period, and mammal-like reptiles were appearing for the first time. So the Pleistocene period, the epoch, and the glacier or the ice age time we're talking about here, which really formed what we have in Ohio, and relatively recently, as 15,000 years ago, was the last ones that left. Glaciers covered about 2/3 of Ohio, and Dawn's going to show you maps later on about this. So that time period was about 250 million years ago to the present. Glaciated deposits, water was shaping most of the earth we see today, shaped by ice and wind. Ice shaped much of Ohio. These glaciers were from tens of feet thick to thousands of feet thick. On the front edge of the glacier, as it came down from the north, it was pushing a lot of material. Don has talked before about erratics that he finds, and he's documented a lot. You'll find rocks that do not belong here that are from the Canadian Shield. So the glaciers flattened much of our state. And you can see its action with the deep grooves on Kelly's Island, which I have visited, and get an idea of the action over a very slow period of time of what they did. And they would go around areas where the stone was too hard for them to go through and plow through. You can see the tracks of the glaciers of what it could and could not go around. So 1 million years ago was the first glaciation. The last one left about 15,000 years ago. One thing that a lot of Ohioans don't know about, we covered in my OCVN classes, was about the Taze River Valley. And the Taze River was a north and northwest flowing ancient river before the Pleistocene ice ages, before 2.5 million years ago. And it flowed through, you can look by the map, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, some bits of Virginia here. Kind of idea of the states and the area that this massive river covered. So as the glaciers advanced, it basically dissected and wiped away large parts of the river. So the river was actually covered by the glacial tip. But also because of the glaciers coming down, it caused several lakes to form along the Taze and the associated branches and rivers there. So Lake Tite was one, and Lake Monongahela was another one. So we always talk about these ancient seas and ancient rivers in Ohio. And there are places where there are lots of remnants by the river valleys where there's no water now. This is the formation of the Ohio River is out of this too. So overflow of the lakes that formed after the Taze River was dissected caused lots of floods to form. This is this water over Ohio's ancient seas ebbing and flowing. And the rivers that formed out of all of this, all these changes in the Cider River and the Ohio River. And that's some of our most direct evidence we see today of that ancient Taze River. In Ohio, the Taze system is known as Parker Strath. And it was through Ohio in a northwesterly direction from Huntington, West Virginia. And as I said, it's now most of it buried beneath the glacial drift. Then runs from Chillicothe to the border of Indiana near Grand Lake St. Mary's. So the Scioto River, as it was forming, has eroded and partially destroyed the Taze Valley from the areas of Waverly to Richmondale, but its floor exists as a broad upland flats near the Omega and Higbee, Ohio, which I'm not sure exactly where those are. So as the Taze continued northward toward Chillicothe, it disappeared again under the Wisconsin drift. From Chillicothe, you can trace it to go again northwestern past Andersonville, Ohio, and crosses the southwestern part of Pickaway County. Then it goes into the northeast corner of Fayette County near Waterloo, Ohio, extends northwest past London into Madison County to Vienna and Clark County. It's joined by the Groveport River at that point, which drains central Ohio. From Vienna, the Taze River goes westerly to a point near Springfield, which is Clark County, obviously, northwest past St. Paris and Champaign County to Sydney, Ohio, which I had family there forever ago. And it goes up to the southeastern part of Washington Township and Oglesby County, joined by another tributary, Wapakoneta Creek in that area. And it goes up to the Ohio-Indiana state line and advances further on there. There's a great Wikipedia article on this that really explains the map more, where it's gone. But with satellite imaging, you can see a lot more of where the valleys were. And that's how they're able to, with current imaging and with the geology studies, they know the path of where the river was. So I mentioned Lake Tite, and this is this monstrous lake that covered a huge area of Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio. I think maybe a bit of Pennsylvania too. But this is once the Taze River was fractured, this is what happened with all the different flooding and the different water changes as things were new. So Lake Tite was a glacial lake in what is now Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia during the Ice Age, early Pleistocene. And it was about 900 feet deep and 7,000 square miles inside. So that's about 2/3 the size of Lake Erie. When the lake finally overflowed, created new drainage channels that flowed south opposite direction of the Taze River, which that was going to the northwest. So because of glaciation, we have, eskers, kames, and kettles. And in our state parks, in one of our metro parks, you can see examples of these. So this is just a quote I got from Plains of Western Ohio, tell the story how the Wisconsin Glacier created the modern landscape. The glacial remnants encountered at Siegenthaler-Kestner Esker State Reserve, central Champaign County. The glacier receded from this region about 16,000 years ago. And so the features you see in that park are called contact features. So the glacier was receding back northward and the meltwater streams were flowing south. So as they receded, they left behind these landforms, which we've talked about in some of our previous sessions here. And those have changed very little because it's not in glacial or in geological terms, not that long ago, since these were deposited. And many of the glacial features that we have are actually formed by the meltwater from the glacier rather than the glacier itself. Don had mentioned the Cobb Shell Trail at the Tell Darby Metro Park as an example. I think both sides of the trail, you can see an esker there. Steep-sided, sinuous, discontinuous ridge of sand and gravel, stratified glacial sediment deposited by flowing water. It tunnels on within or beneath the ice that they had there. And there are meltwater streams that were going through there to help form these. And you can see that they were parts of ancient stream beds. Kames are small knolls of stratified gravel and pits and crevices of the ice. And kettles are small ponds to the east of, in this one particular park, you can see a small kettle lake. And in about a half a mile walk, you have all three of these features in this park that I just mentioned, which is Siegenthaler-Kestner Esker. And that's an esker on the right-hand side that the trail goes along here. It's obviously older, it's grown up with trees on it, but you can see that ridge. And if you continue along here, this trail basically ends in a kettle. And hopefully there's signposting. Their website has a lot of information about it. The other thing we have in our Geology of Ohio discussing, which I did not know about till very recently, is astrogeology. There are 28 impact craters that are confirmed in the United States, and we have one here in Ohio. And it's actually part of that Serpent Mound Park in Adams, Highland, Pike County areas, called the Serpent Mound Impact Structure. And it's only been fairly recent that they have verified that this was an impact crater. The Serpent Mound, they used to call it a sunken mountain, or they used to say that it was built on an ancient volcano that collapsed. But now they know through various geological studies and from satellite photography that this was actually an impact crater. It's 9 miles in diameter. The Serpent Mound, is in the south part of this crater. And one of the clues is there is zinc surface, and on the surface in that area, there are subsurface rocks that are exposed, but they know it had to take a tremendous impact to expose those. On the left is the Serpent Mound that and with observation tower and all that. But then on the right is showing a satellite view of the area with the white dotted lines showing the general area of the impact crater. Absolutely fascinating. To wind up here, the best places to see Ohio geology, I just did a quick list of things that I knew of. Hocking Hills region is great. Seeing the layers, Ash Cave, Cantwell Cliffs, Rock House, Conkle's Hollow, Rock Bridge State Nature Preserve, which has a natural arch in it. The Black Hand Sandstone in the area is what that's called. Black Hand Gorge in the Licking County, Newark area is a great place to see these layers, which is where they got the name of the Black Hand sandstone. Supposedly there was a black hand on the wall. It was a guide for Native Americans, also possibly designating it was a very secret place. Other place called Nelson Kennedy Ledges State Park, which is northwest of Youngstown, between Youngstown and Cleveland. Rugged cliffs, waterfall systems, beautiful there. Ohio Caverns, we've got a lot of caverns and caves in Ohio. Ohio Caverns is a great place to understand Ohio geology. I did not know we had this many. Ohio has over 500 caves, mostly limestone caves, and mostly in Western Ohio. Most caves are on private property, and they're also, many of them are ODNR to protect bat populations from white nose syndrome. And with many of them, you can get permits, especially if you belong to a local spelunking club. I mentioned Kelly's Island, the glacial grooves are just fascinating to visit. Clifton Gorge, it's a dolomite and limestone gorge. Erosion from meltwaters can be seen there. The Esker and West Liberty, as I said, the Siegenthaler Esker State Nature Preserve. The original channel can be clearly seen from the top of the Esker today as it curves across the landscape. Back to the cave issue. These are the list of the developed show caves, as they say, that you can go and tour. In Ohio, Perry's Cave, Seneca Caverns, which is great Ohio Caverns, wonderful Man's Cave, Olentangy Caverns, very close to my house here, Ash Cave, and Mary Campbell Cave. So some of the undeveloped caves that are very popular to tour are Saltpeter Cave. You need a permit to go there. Zane Shawnee Caverns, Roche House. I don't know about that one. It's not a cave, but an arch. Kelly's Island has 2 wild caves there, discovered by the Cleveland Grotto, which is a spelunking club there. Northwest on the island is where it looks like it is, near the glacial groove. Green Island, been documented caves there, and a place called Whispering Cave. Again, a lot of the cave clubs are documenting these places. So quickly to just center in on Columbus, the Columbus area defined by the US Census is 212.6 square miles. 2.3 square miles of this is water. We are not landlocked, we are not waterlocked, and it is one of the fastest growing cities in the US. And as we know, Columbus is very flat. The high point in Franklin County is near New Albany, 1,132 feet. The low point is where the Scioto River leaves the county near Lockbourne, about 670 feet. And our water features, as we've talked about in his Don's talk about the Rapid 5, we've got some great water features here. The confluence of the Olentangy and Scioto Rivers, Allen Creek, Darby Creek system, Big Walnut Creek, beautiful waterway system here. Here's a satellite image, which again, you can see the waterway system through the central Ohio area. And very, very flat. And last little bit here is a couple of places in central Ohio to understand more. And there are some great videos on this too, which I have given at the end on YouTube. If you just Google, like on YouTube, search for geology of High Banks Metro Park and geology of some of these places, you will get some great YouTubes explaining it. But High Banks is a great place to see so many things in action of erosion and glaciation here. Shale Hollow, again, the layers in what they call the potato chip shale. Dexter Falls, great fossil hunting there also, which is off Hayden Run Road. Used to call it Bethel Falls or whatever. The Cobb trails we mentioned before at Battelle Darby Metro Park, quarry trails that we talked about extensively last week. Really see a lot of limestone layers, great fossil hunting there also. And to go learn more also is the Orton Geological Museum on OSU campus. It's at Hall. And also it's free admission there, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Do check before you go to make sure it's open. The Ohio Historical Society, the Ohio History Center off 71 is also a great place to see an introduction to understand more about Ohio geology. And Orton Hall, I had forgotten this until I was working on the slides. one of the most fascinating buildings in the world. It's the only one we know of that was intentionally designed to reflect geologic time. Its architecture is a reflection of the time scale. It was originally constructed from Ohio building stone exclusively, arranged in correct stratigraphic order from Silurian at the base to Carboniferous near the top of the bell tower. So that's pretty cool. So it represents the Paleozoic era, and stone carvings inside and outside are great and geologic in nature. The bell tower grotesques represent Mesozoic era and Cenozoic era animals, including reptiles and mammals. So take a look at this sometime. Go and visit the museum. So the building reflects time and change. It was named for OSU's first president, who was a geology professor, and his office was there in Orton Hall. Very influential. I mean, a lot of contributions, but and they do have classes that are still there, geology classes in Orton Hall. So anyway, I welcome you to go visit that. It's very fun. And this will be on the website, just some further reading. I have some links and some YouTubes on here about bedrock geology of Ohio. Some great, Trek Ohio has things on that saltpeter cave Nature Preserve. And some of the caves are there. ODNR has a great portal about the Serpent Mound Impact Crater, Nelson County Ledges State Park, as I mentioned. And we'll have those links up for you to go over later too. And that is it. Don, you ready?
Yeah, I sure am. I just have a few things to share here to just some tie-in. One thing I wanted to point out, let me open this one up. The glaciers, the three glaciers that came through here during our ice age. Let me do the slideshow thingy here. As they moved through, they came from the northwest, moved southeast, and at this time, you had that working. They were about 3 miles deep overall, these glaciers, and we're compacting these very thick layers of silt from the receding tropical sea that was here, and all of the skeletons and the shells of all the billions of sea animals that were there that were dying off. So all that stuff under obviously a great amount of time under a great deal of pressure, and that's what caused our local bedrock here, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And it was actually working against what our geography was at the time, because before the glaciers came through, the earth was at a slightly different angle, and that's what actually caused that, for example, the Taze River to flow northeast instead of south or southeast or southwest. It completely bulldozed and reshaped the land. And these two maps, I love my maps. These show the different layers of geological stratification throughout Ohio based on what the glaciers did. And if you see what the red arrow is pointing to, that's Franklin County. On the right, that's orange, which is a layer of Devonian limestone bedrock that is at the surface. where you see that orange band is the only place in the state that has that. And then on the left, that shows the soil composition that goes along with that in that kind of olive green there. Every part of the state has something a little bit different based on what the glaciers did. And this kind of ties it together in terms of the different periods. Now, the Devonian period was part of the Paleozoic, as the top arrow shows. And to the east of us, where you have all that light yellow, and that's where the Hocking Hills is, and the Appalachian Plateau, and the start of the Allegheny Plateau, which moves into the Allegheny Mountains in Pennsylvania. The reason you have that is this line right here that divides it from the Devonian. That's where the glaciers stop moving to. So when you travel down that way and you start to see all the big hills, that's where this line is. And that's basically where the glaciers stopped, and all of the soil and gravel and boulders and everything that they were pushing ahead of themselves, that's where they stopped. So at the surface to the east, you have this Proterozoic bedrock, which is what you see when you visit there, the Glad Hand sandstone, for example, and the Black Hand sandstone. Totally different from what we have. And in terms of, more specifically locally, what we have here, I wanted to show you this because I got real excited when I saw this. I was traveling down Dublin Road one day on my way home from the Ohio Wildlife Center, and I was going actually on Dublin Road straight through Old Dublin, and saw where a house was being built, and specifically where the basement was being built. And there was this. They had blasted and dug the basement, and that's what this big hole is. And you can kind of see the outline of the footers. And if you look at this from the bottom
I think we can
up,
see this.
it's all just layers of limestone. And look how shallow that layer of earth and grass is on top of it. There's almost no soil. And that's what we have pretty much all over the Columbus area.
Yeah, we can only see your PowerPoint presentation. We can't see the picture you're talking about.
If you want to stop sharing screen for just a second, we could see that.
I'm sorry, I should have stopped and restarted.
Maybe start video again. Okay.
There we go. Now you can see it,
Oh,
right?
there it is. Yeah.
So again, if you see here, there's all these layers of limestone. You can see the layers, and you can see how very little dirt and grass there is there. There's almost nothing for that grass to root into. And this is how most of the Columbus area is. You don't have to dig very far to hit our limestone bedrock. And that's why this area was very big for quarrying. Limestone has been used as a building material. And one of the other things is now the limestone is all shell and skeleton material from all of those Cambrian and Precambrian sea animals, the billions and billions of them. It's all that mixed with silt and with salt from those seas that were receding. So it's all bone, shell, and sea, or salt. And for that reason, one of the big quarry projects or products, excuse me, is mining this stuff, and whatever could not be sold for rock for building, they crush and grind that stuff up. And what do you think happens to it? It goes to the farmers, and they use that to lime their fields to improve the pH in the soil on their fields. It's a big byproduct of our local mining industry. And it's because we have that type of rock, that stuff is shipped all over the country for that reason. There are so many other places in the country that do not have bedrock near the surface to where they can easily mine and get the limestone, get the lime. And one other thing I'll show you here, this is just a different view of the bedrock surface layers of Ohio. So at the red arrow, there's us, Columbus, Devonian. And then you go a little further east, in between Columbus and Zanesville, you've got that layer of Mississippian stone. By the time you get to Zanesville, you've got the Pennsylvanian top stone, and then further east again, Permian. And keep in mind now, at the Permian level, where that stuff's at the top, you got Pennsylvanian below that, Mississippian below that, and Devonian well below that. It's still there, it's just not on the surface. And if you go west towards Springfield, you've got the Silurian, Cambrian, and Ordovican as you head towards the Ohio-Indiana border. And you've got some other things below that, Precambrian stone and basin sediments. So just it's like a side slice of what it looks like. And again, it is that way because of the pressure from the glaciers bulldozing across the state. If they had never come, that Permian level that you see on the far east would have been our bedrock. And our elevation would have been a fair bit higher than what it is here. And all of those other stone types would have been below us. Are there any questions on that or anything else that Christie had covered? If you're muted, you can unmute yourselves if you'd like to ask a question. I think pretty much everybody's muted at this point.
Oops.
Anybody?
It's a lot to take in.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. Do you have time to do trivia?
We've got like 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Up to you.
Do you think you can, you have questions, right?
A quick question.
Yes.
I didn't see the whole presentation and I see that you're recording. Where will we will we be able to view this, or will we be able to view this again?
Oh, yes, you will.